The first thing we want to do to determine the 6 trigonometric values for a function at the angle 17 pi over 6 radians is to convert that angle into degrees by multiplying by 180 degrees over pi. That's going to give us 510 degrees, and we can't graph 510 degrees on a 360 degree graph, so we can subtract 360 degrees, and we'll end up with an equivalent angle, which is 150 degrees. So we're going to graph 150, but really what our angle is doing is rotating a full 360 degrees and then an additional 150 degrees to give us our 510 degrees. From here, we can draw a triangle based off that line that we drew. We're going to draw a vertical line straight down to the x-axis and then a line including the x-axis. And from here, we want to identify our reference angle, which in this triangle is 30 degrees off that 150, and identify the sides of our triangle, which because it's a 30, 60, 90, make the adjacent side the square root of 3, the opposite side 1, and the hypotenuse 2. From here, we want to walk through each of the definitions for our trig functions. So we know that the sine of theta, our 30 degrees, is going to be the opposite over hypotenuse. We know cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. And we know that the tangent of theta is going to equal the opposite side over the adjacent side. And for each of these trig functions, we have a reciprocal trig function. So the cosecant of theta is the reciprocal of sine, the hypotenuse over the opposite side. The secant of theta is going to be the reciprocal of cosine, the hypotenuse over the adjacent side. And cotangent of theta is going to be the reciprocal of tangent, which is going to be the adjacent over the opposite side. So now, for each of these, we can plug in the information that we have on our graph, as long as we remember that we're dealing with the second quadrant when we apply the sines. So, the sine of 510 degrees is going to equal the opposite over the hypotenuse, 1 over 2, and then we can apply a positive sign because sine is positive in the second quadrant. The cosine of 510 degrees is going to equal root 3 over 2. However, cosine is negative in the second quadrant, so we have to apply a negative sign. Tangent of 510 degrees is going to equal 1 over the square root of 3. Tangent is also negative in the second quadrant, so we need to apply a negative sign. And then we're going to rationalize that function, so we're going to end up with negative root 3 over 3. Now for the reciprocal functions, we can just take their original trig functions and flip them. So the cosine of theta, in this case, is going to be positive 2 over 1, the reciprocal of 1 over 2. Secant of theta is going to equal 2 over root 3, but negative. And we can rationalize that to get 2 times the square root of 3 over 3, also negative. And then cotangent is going to equal the square root of 3 over 1, but also negative, because it's the same sign as tangent, or more simply, this negative square root of 3. And those will be our final answers.